Greetings! Tantus Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome once more. Are you ready to discuss some role-playing related topics, and especially Pathfinder, as we are once again today diving into the Pathfinder world of Golarion? Whether you, of course, are joining me live on Twitch over here, or later on YouTube when this is put up. Hi YouTube! Hi everybody! Welcome. For you guys on YouTube, please remember to appease the dark powers of the algorithm and like, subscribe, and ring the bell and all that kind of stuff. My question today, has any of you had any adventures in our topic for today, the lands of the Linnorm Kings? Now, I am going to say, before we truly dive into today, I am only going to go over some basics of the land of Linnorm Kings. If you've seen my Varisian episode, back in the videos that I've done before, I didn't dive into the city-states of Varisia, because each were their own countries in a row. I'm going to be talking about the land of the Linnorm Kings as a whole, but I do want to hit up and have videos at some point in time, whether small or large, on each of these 7 individual kingdoms that make up the land of the Linnorm Kings, because that does make a difference in the various cities and places there, and it is a complex region that is oftentimes put together for various ethnic and territorial reasons, but is in and of itself also unique, that it is kind of like the River Kingdoms in a lot of ways. I didn't go into depths about the River Kingdoms, but I'm playing this more like the Varisia than the River Kingdoms. You know, the River Kingdoms are a little more chaotic and, you know, a little bit more different than this in a way, because those grow up and disappear so quickly. This is chaotic too, but for different reasons. And we'll explain it here. I'll show you why it's important in comparison to the other places I've talked about that have multiple countries in them, to talk about individuals. Some of these times I talk about it, sometimes I don't. Depends on the region, the country, that kind of stuff. Look, I'll follow my rules when I follow my rules. Don't you people do that, right? Anyway, some books. These are books if you want to read up on it and get some more details, and especially in these kingdoms ahead of time. Inner-Sea World Guide and Campaign Settings were the first 2 books to give us something from first edition. We also did have Land of the Linnorm Kings, a campaign setting book from first edition. So those 3 were a great place to get a lot of the basic stuff of it here. And if you're looking at second edition, the Lost Zone World Guide does provide some information. That's the flag of the Land of the Linnorm Kings. So, what is the Land of the Linnorm Kings? Well, it is the homeland of the Ulfin people. And it's a number of kingdoms that are wild and untamable as the people that live there. They're nested in the northwestern tip of Avastian. It's around taiga, marshlands that is frozen beneath layers of snow most of the year, and is utterly inhospitable to most of the hardiest of people. Now, the official full capital of this place is Kolsgard, but there isn't really no single ruler, and Kolsgard is only kind of put that way because it's in the Thanelands, and it's a metropolis. It's a massive city in the Thanelands. So we'll dive into Kolsgard, or Kolsgard, when I talk about the Thanelands, but keep in mind that it's sort of what people consider the capital of the region. And, yeah. And it's basically the full place is ruled by this loose confederacy of tribal monarchies. So, let's talk history of it, though, because that's really going to give us a display on how the lands of the Linnorm Kings work. And we have to look to the first Linnorm King from this region in North Avastian, King Sabjorn Armvang, who gained his title as a Linnorm King by slaying a Linnorm at the mouth of the Rhineflow River in negative 624 AR. He used this fame that he garnered from his deed to declare himself a king, and proclaimed that all future Linnorm Kings must follow his example and slay a Linnorm in single combat. Others would copy the accomplishment here, and the killing of Linnorms would grow as a tradition that has lasted to present. The fame began to grow. Sabjorn established the settlement of Kolsgard. So again, that's why Kolsgard is seen as so important. It was the first kingdom of the first Linnorm King. As it began, it was little more than a mead hall that Sabjorn and his warriors just hung out at before. And with his legend spreading, people flocked to this new king out of a bit of curiosity and need for protection, and the settlement grew into the town, and eventually to the city and metropolis it become now. Now by negative 609 AR, Sabjorn's kingdom had grown to include all lands between the Rhineflow River in the south, Broken Bay in the west, and Glacier Lake to the east. The largest territory ever to be held by a single ruler in that part of the world at that time. Sabjorn's son slew his own Linnorm and took over rule of Kalsgard, as his father began lusting for further conquest in the south. Sabjorn attacked the giants of Old Hustium in negative 608 AR, but he failed to best them through pure force, and decided on a different tactic. He would slay the mythic Linnorm Fafnir, and thereby cow the giants into surrender. Of course, Sabjorn trudged into Grunir Forest to hunt this mighty dragon, and was never seen from again. And his kingdom quickly disintegrated into 24 squabbling fiefdoms. Another early story was the discovery of Arcadia by the Linnorm king Uslavis in negative 473 and the founding of the colony of Valenhall. Though the long millennia since, the annals of history have been dotted with exploits of exceptional Ulfin, and through much of the Age of Enthrallment, the Ulfin were raiders, ranging along the entire western coast of Avastian, and eventually, occasionally, Garun. So they would just be raiders in that entire region. And as the century passed and the southern lands became more densely inhabited, structured, and constantly more resistant to raids, several Linnorm kingdoms shifted from raiding to commerce. Their journey south sought to forge trade partnerships instead of seeking conquest through battle. However, some kingdoms viewed these alterations as disrespectful to the forebearers, while others retained a preference for raiding or trade. Now we reach a major point in history, and that is the Winter War. So, despite the long and glorious deeds of all of their ancestors, this is a stain that will mark the history of these lands and haunt them, and continues to haunt them, to today in modern Pathfinders with Golarion. And its eastern borders is a dangerous place because of it. Irisen. It's a land that modern Irisen, well, Irisen itself, which is still a country to this day, wasn't always a separate nation. And its perpetually wintered plains were once part of the land of the Linnorm Kings. Baba Yaga conquered the lands in under 23 days in 3313 AR, invading with her armies of Ice Fae and Blueskin trolls and enslaving the eastern lands and brutally slaughtering anyone that resisted. The situation was so dire a gambit that in 3325 the members of the Linnorm Kings sent children from across the lands to the first world kingdom of Frost Ends in exchange for aid. They traded their children for aid from the First World against this onslaught. That's how bad it was. Despite centuries of time that have passed and Baba Yaga's departure of Golarion to travel the plains, the Ulfin people still hold a grudge. The border of the East remains well guarded, and until the Ulfin are willing to cooperate and unite under a single ruler, retaking Irisen will remain impossible. And we will talk about Irisen in another video. It will be mentioned. But just keep in mind, it's a major stain in the land's history from some nearly about 4,500 years, or 1,500 years ago. Now, the Winter War was the most successful invasion of here. It's not the only one. In 4402, Imperial Cheliax attempted to invade the town of Halgrim, but the attackers were quickly repelled by locals, and a single Cheli ship of survivors was sent back home with the pickled heads of their compatriots to serve as a lesson to the king. They pickled the heads of their enemies and sent them back. In recent years, the incessant raiding of the Ulfin people has declined them. The penchant of daring has not. The most recent example was when Linnorm King Whitestrid's arrival in Absalom in 4704, nearly 20 years ago. She arrived after having launched a daring raid in the Needle's port of Nisroch, after which she breached the Cellist blockade, noting that the Cheliaxians are allies of Niddle, at the Arch of Eredin before victoriously putting in at Absalom. So, raided a town and broke through Cellist blockades and showed up in Absalom. He's like, heh, I'm great. Now, another big thing that has happened, which you can check out my video on it, is the arrival of New Thassalon emerging at the southern borders of the Linnorm Kingdoms. In 4718, King Opper of Southmore then committed a fatal error by launching an ill-advised raid against Rune Lord Galaris' domains. His defeat has seen his kingdom losing its ruler at the time. Opper's body was never discovered among the fallen in the battlefield. Some claim he's imprisoned in concealed dungeons within the island realms of western New Thassalon, while others suggest he escaped from the mountains and is currently amassing an army, planning to return to the throne. The absence of loyal allies interested in investigating his disappearance or seeking potential revival only deepens the enigma surrounding his destiny. So, yeah, things didn't go well there when attacking New Thassalon. Turns out the two returns of Brood Lords are a force to be reckoned with. Let's talk geography. Now, here are, of course, the kingdoms. Broken Bay, Icemark, the Thanelands, Hagreach, Grundar Forest, Southmore, and the Ironbound Isles. Now, you can see, where is it on the map? I'm trying to find it on the map, the capital. Halsgrad. Kalslart's in the Thanelands, of course. And as you can see, it's there at the bay. I'll put my mouse on the screen and show it. It's right in this area here. There's Kalslar. So if you want to know where the capital is. Now, when we look at the Linnorm Kings, it's where land meets the stemming sea and the Stormspear Mountains, which separates it from the eternal ice of the crown of the world. Not all are based on the mainland. The Kingdom of White Estrid is based on a group of large islands in the Ironbound Archipelago, which shed out the seeming sea. And then these islands are outside the control of White Estrid or any other kingdoms. So there is a bunch of other islands outside of control in that region. They're bordered by the hated realm of Irison to the east, New Thessalonians to the south, and due to that emergence, they're no longer bordered to the land of Varisia, which they were before. It's a cold, frozen place, mostly taiga, marshland. It's carved by ancient glaciers, that kind of land. It really doesn't support agriculture. It's filled with a lot of game, rich wildlife. The coastal areas are warmer by the steaming sea, but are also buffeted year-round by rain and snow. The most interesting geographical feature of this entire region is the fact that this place is extraplanar, for it sits atop an invisible planar rift leading to the first world of the Fey. The rift is the reason there's a large amount of Fey that inhabit the land of Linnorm Kings. It also explains the presence of the rare and mysterious Linnorms, which the place gets its name for. So yes, there's more to the geography here, but when I do individual videos on each of these 7 kingdoms, I'll talk about the geography there and a lot of their cities. But keep in mind, this is the map, and we can kind of see the different kingdoms here. 7 current different kingdoms. It doesn't mean the kingdoms haven't changed and shifted, which we have to talk about when we talk about the people that rule over this place. The effective government. There isn't really a central. The country is comprised of smaller kingdoms clustered around big settlements in the regions, united by Ulfern heritage. These 7 are the current ones that I showed in that map before, but this has fluctuated in the past. The kingdom is led by Linnorm Kings, of course. They are leaders of legend, and each king is a powerful warrior equal to the mightiest heroes of the lands. To claim this title, the applicant must defeat a dragon-like creature known as a Linnorm in single combat and carry its head through the city gates. The Linnorm's head is then generally mounted in the throne room as proof of the king's authority. This is an incredibly difficult challenge, and swords only the mightiest warriors become Linnorm Kings. They have absolute authority over their subjects in their own kingdoms. Conflict between these kingdoms is commonplace, but usually not settled by full-scale war. They instead solve through arbitration, where the guilt or tests of adventures by a king's champion. So basically, yes, it's normally, if we have a conflict, we send our champions out to test each other in these tests, and, this arbitrates our problems. The most standard number of Linnorm Kings has been 5. Again, we have 7 now, and currently we have Igmar the Unruly, who leads Broken Bay, White Estrich, who rules over the Ironbound Islands, Varki Nanko, who leads Icemark, Ostog the Unslain, head of Southmar. Guess what? Ostog isn't over there anymore. We talked about his entire thing. So, yeah. Oh no, Ostog is the current one. That's Oper, 8 Fingers, having disappeared. Ostog took over. Their names are very similar. So Ostog basically took over Southmore. King Friara Ash Eyes ruled the Thanelands. The other regions have no single ruler. In the case of Hagreach, Castellan is currently in control. Basically, they haven't got a Linnorm King in control of that region yet, so they've got someone else looking over it until the time that it comes. The Thanelands is the only kingdom to have an unbroken line of rulers stretching back before the Winter War. So, the Thanelands, ancient place. Deep connections. That'll be one of the first ones I probably talk about, honestly, when we go over all these things. Now, there has occasionally been some controversy around the slaying of Linnorm that have sparked dispute. In the case of King Oper 8 Fingers, the guy who's disappeared, well, no one actually witnessed him slaying his Linnorm. He returned to Joel with the Linnorm head already decomposing, using it as evidence. There was some speculation that he stumbled on a dead Linnorm and taken its head, but that was soon silenced, but those suspicions were soon silenced, knowing the fate of those who await those who spread those such notions, thanks to a gruesome and highly visible executions. So, yeah, he basically brought a rotting head, there were some rumors about it, and he killed a bunch of people to basically maintain his control. It makes him seem unusual why no one went in to go find him then, when he went and fought New Thassalon. It's so unusual. And King White Estrich defied tradition by subjugating a defeated Linnorm and enlisting it into her service rather than slaying it. Initially, it was met with skepticism, but her compassion towards Linnorm Boleton proved her strength as a ruler, backed by a formidable ally. King Friar Ash Eyes, on the other hand, showed less mercy to their Linnorm adversary, killing creature and ascended from Kalsgard, the region's capital. This followed her father, King Seven Blood Eagle's departure to Valenhall in the west for his afterlife. Noku, a Varki ranger, has caused a commotion by assuming the Linnorm title in Icemark, surprising many Ulfin warriors. So, of Varki descent. Although Nanuk's victory over the Linnorm is undeniable, it changed Ulfin expectations as the Varki people claim that they see it as a traditional Ulfin title. Ostog the Unslain, a renowned adventurer, is the most recent king to ascend the throne, taking over, of course, Joel's rulership after Osvir's vanishing. So, renowned adventurer that basically could do the same thing. It's interesting that there is a little bit of different things in different ways and traditions. So, agriculture isn't a big thing here. We gotta say that. It's not a large part of Ulfrin economy. The growing season in the north is very short. The ground is hard and filled with stones. During the warmer months, many Ulfrin traders with the south acquire food and various luxuries they cannot manufacture themselves. These trading missions are vitally necessity, as the winters are long and starvation is an ever-present danger. Most traders take along weapons and shields in these trading trips, as the chances of plunder presents itself very high. So let's talk about and this is, of course, Friara Ash Eyes, the current king of Kalsgard, the current Linnorm king of that region in the Thanelands. So there she is. But she's a very traditional Ulfrin warrior. Because the most numerous humanoids in this frozen land are the Ulfin people. They've always been this has always been the spiritual home of their people, with records tracing the Ulfin people's habitation on this land as far back as the Age of Destiny, though they probably resided there long before these early records. Few other humanoids call this northern reach home, among them wandering Varisians, the hardy dwarfs, and Fey-like gnomes. The other main inhabitant of the lands here are Fey. They in fact outnumber the humans, because of that connection to the First World. Other non-common and humanoid creatures include the Zadas, giants, trolls, spirit animals, nature spirits, animals under mysterious enchantments, capable of both begging for their lives and casting ominous curses, as well as lingering spirits of the deceased who haunt the locations of their demise. A number of characteristic effigies like the Blood Eagle, Mything Pole, Tree of Souls, and Wicker Man are part of the culture of the Ulfin people in the land of the Linnorm Kings. And the people that prefer gods, the people that do go worship gods, prefer ones with strong ties to nature and battle. So, among the most popular deities of the Ulfin people of the land of the Linnorm Kings are Desna, Arastal, Gorum, and Torak. And that's our introduction to the lands of the Linnorm Kings. Which you get that title whether you're male or female. You're still a Linnorm King. It's just a title. Interestingly enough, it's the fact that just you have to be the one to do it, you know. The thing is, it's a place where you see constant battle in a way. Battle against nature, battle against the difficulty of living there. And this tradition of slaying this powerful beast that lives there is an interesting one. And yes, there is a legend that says that one day a king will rise in this place to be the High King and slay the father of all Linnorms, Fafnir, to claim that title, which the very first one tried to do and failed. But, you know, so far no one has tried to take on the CR-24 dragon monster in one-on-one combat and survive. So, yeah. It's an interesting nation. It is one that is both separate places and united. If push come to shove, certainly they would rise to the defense again. They remember things like what happened with the Winter War. If there was an invasion of the lands of the Linnorm Kings, I'm not anyway hesitant to say others would rise up to help out them. They would fight together to protect their lands, if it truly was a massive invasion, like what happened before. They remember that. But to do things like attack Irison, that's a bit different. That's being aggressive. That's going against an enemy that's there. And it's each to their own at that point in time. Without that High King, they will perhaps never be as united. And there will always be this competition, whether or not outright war, but competition, warriors' pride against each other, that makes each of these kingdoms unique. And certainly speaking, it's a dangerous thing to become a Linnorm King. You have to be a powerful warrior. You have to. You have to fight a powerful beast on your own and slay it. Anyway, I think we can leave it here for now, because that's a very interesting place to kind of put it, where we know the basics of the land of Linnorm Kings, and at some point in the future we visit these kingdoms again and talk about each of the individual ones and how they work and who rules them, and get an idea about them. Very interesting. But until then, I hope you enjoyed all this. I hope you enjoy the tabletop stuff I do. If you want to catch me live, it's every Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, early to mid-afternoon. I get started then, depending on life stuff. And Saturday is a backup day. You can always catch those, of course, up on YouTube, usually a couple days to, later, depending on schedule of uploads and stuff like that. I also do a live play Pathfinder 1st Edition on Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Crimson Queen. We are doing a version of the Crimson Throne Adventure Path. I'd say check it out, even if it's already, catching this video years on and that series is already done. Check that out in my other live plays. Check it out. I also do Discussing Tabletop Saturdays at 6, where we talk about tabletop news of the week and deeper discussion topics, which are very interesting. I will always recommend. I have social media linked below, and that's it. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed learning about this. We will revisit the land of Linnorm Kings. I felt like this one, when I looked into it, each of these places deserved a little bit of something on their own to kind of describe them, because each of these kingdoms was more stable, at least, than some place like the River Kingdoms, where those places will appear and disappear in days. At least there's a little bit more stability here. They might disappear when a king dies. They might not. Certainly in different regions. Anyway, until the next time, though, we talk about anything like these, more of this topic, more other Pathfinder topics, or other topics. I bid all of you a deep and wonderful farewell.